hey, in the last 5 years, we've deployed all these different forms of tablets,
Yeah.
and we're running into security issues, connectivity issues,
Got it.
right?
Okay.
Life cycle availability issues.
So they try the other guys first, and then
Yeah.
they say, I got all these problems, all these potholes, and then they come to Mason.
Yeah, YC, I mean, this was back in 2016, so I'm sure a lot have changed. But it was a wonderful experience, great community, like-minded founders. They had just started their hardware batch as well, so I was part of that, where it was a little subset of the broader community.
Hi, welcome to the Margin and Motive podcast. I'm Jason Lee. Today we've got a special treat. I'm joined by my friend and colleague Jared Steele, and one of our very special guests, Jim Xiao. He's the founder and CEO of Mason, which is a fantastic healthcare-oriented company. A number of interesting products that Jim's going to be telling us a little bit about today. Jim, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for coming in on a snowy Seattle. You guys have quite the treat today.
That's right. Yeah, we're here on location in Seattle. The weather is, as you would expect in Seattle, a little bit drizzly, a little bit cold for the springtime. But beautiful facilities here. You got your friend with us, and excited to have a conversation with you today, Jim. So, Jim, why don't you give us a sense for how you have started, and maybe tell us a little bit some of the highlights in your career.
Yeah, so I mean, gosh, it's been 10 years now. Started Mason back in 2016. We actually came out of the great city of Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
Went through Y Combinator in 2016. Did the Silicon Valley, episode season 1 through 3, where we, worked out of a house that was HQ.
Okay.
Signed some big healthcare names and raised our venture round back in 2019.
Okay.
Grew the company. We're in downtown Seattle, profitable now, and currently we're servicing some of the top pharma companies in the world with clinical trials to top medtech companies in cardiac, epilepsy, anesthesia, you name it, to government and retail customers as well.
Wow.
Government agencies and retail chains you've probably been to, like the Gap and Lululemon.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Lot of interesting discussions, conversations, negotiations probably throughout that whole process.
Oh yeah, I mean it was great going through vendor assessment, right out of a house on Capitol Hill in Seattle.
Yeah.
Where one of the requirements was making sure we recycled, and they saw that from the Street View maps
Oh,
before
wow.
they checked us out. It's like, hey, at least these guys recycle, so let's give them a chance.
Yeah. Interesting.
What was Y Combinator like? Just tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, YC, I mean, this was back in 2016, so I'm sure a lot have changed. But it was a wonderful experience, great community, like-minded founders. They had just started their hardware batch as well, so I was part of that, where it was a little subset of a broader community. We had dinner every Tuesday, still from the crock pot, and so it's very no frills, but a lot of thrills in terms of learning from your peers. And it was just a great environment to be in. Everyone had a motive.
Yes.
Right. Everyone was after their part of the world. And now looking back in the last 10 years, we have a lot of batchmates who've been very, very successful, made a huge impact on society. And so
you have alumni that you're friends with still, and you follow each other, other founders and things like that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's
There's
nice.
an annual YC camp. I haven't been to that in some time, but that was always a blast, where you go up to Redwoods and, you get to see some of the latest. But one of the first ones I was at, it was when Sam Altman came and talked about.
Who's he? What does he do?
Right. It was back in 2017, and he, attended the camp and shared a little project they were working on called OpenAI.
Yeah.
Right, and at the time,
Wow.
most of us were
You
like,
saw the early stages.
well, the early stages was really just, hey, we're experimenting and let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
Right, and so there wasn't much really shared besides, you're in an environment where people have been talking about AI, machine learning,
Yeah.
right? Like big data for quite some time now. So to see everything kind of really happen in the last 10 years has been really exciting.
That's great. Yeah, Y Combinator is one of the things that has a lot of notoriety in the industry, and the fact that you were an alumnus of that program is fantastic. I know before the show you were telling me a little bit about some of your travels. You lived in Detroit for a little while. What took you over there?
Yeah, Detroit was great. Everyone in your 20s decided to, head down to to San Francisco.
Yeah.
But I decided to go east. First did pit stop in Beijing, so like far east,
Okay.
and then landed in Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
I had a great opportunity to work for a great entrepreneur, Dan Gilbert, who runs Rocket Companies,
Yeah.
previously called Quicken Loans, and he was starting a venture capital firm there. So
Okay.
I was hired on early as their first analyst, which was
Wow.
a great gig right out of college, and learned a ton in terms of early stage investment, rebuilding, investing in a city like Detroit. Now, if you go, it's very different than what it was back in 2011. So, and big kudos to Dan Gilbert and the Detroit squad for making all that happen.
Yeah, no, the downtown area in the last few years that I've been there is just fantastic. There's some great places to walk around and restaurants and whatnot. A big difference from 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, and just for the little bit of backstory, Jim and I have been friends for 20 years.
Yes, and we're going to dive into that a little
Yeah,
bit. I think.
so we've been old friends, and went to high school together, and Jim was always just working on stuff. Just always scheming,
Tinkering.
On some great business projects. You always had aspiration that was very clear. We hung out all the time. We had great memories, but you were always working on something. And then you went to school, and then all of a sudden you're in Detroit doing something, and we're just like, that's just it was on brand for you, just to go out and grab the world, and you're at a venture firm all of a sudden, you're 20 years old.
Yeah. That was grad school for me. It was like probably the one time I didn't have something I was tinkering with. But yeah, I wouldn't say I was like, I didn't exactly know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to build, but sometimes not exactly in the shortest path. So like, in high school, working on a nonprofit fundraising website,
Okay.
kind of like a GoFundMe at the time.
Yeah.
And, but instead of learning how to write code and build software myself, I thought, it's actually a much better path if I get a job at the local Olive Garden.
Yeah, that's right.
Free breadsticks for everybody.
7 days, full class schedule in high school.
Yeah.
And then working the evening shift at Olive Garden.
Okay.
Another 40 hours, save
Yeah.
that tip money, because the tip money was pretty good.
I bet.
And then using that tip money to then go hire freelance developers to go build it, because that was clearly the
Interesting.
easiest path.
Yeah. That seems rational.
But it definitely, I was also, I loved the idea of like, making deals from early stage. Where I probably was at the short end of that that deal, but it definitely opened my eyes, and
That's awesome.
raising money for nonprofits and doing it through Olive Garden.
Yeah. Well, listen, I can't let that statement about 20 years of friendship go past here.
Yeah.
Were you when you were at Olive Garden, you're hooking this guy up with free salad and breadsticks?
Yeah,
and
we had
telling him
all
it
the
was just-
schemes.
Oh, and it was just him, or pasta for days?
Hey,
What are
it's
we talking about
unlimited.
here?
It's unlimited for a reason.
Yeah.
And, I would say Jared was quite the QA specialist.
Okay.
When it comes to making sure that salad is.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, QA specialist. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Chief QA specialist.
Yeah.
Let's
You guys get into some trouble in college and high school?
I was thinking about, we had such a great high school experience over on the east side of Seattle. Like, that was a great time to be there. It was, the mid 2000s, and we just had a great time being on the water, Lake Washington, and just enjoying life. And we had a great, group of guys. There were a couple kind of concentric circles. There was sort of the 4, 5, 6 of us, and then there was kind of 12 of us, and then 25 of us, and we all, a little bit of infighting, but for the most part, we just had a really wonderful experience on the east side of Seattle during that time.
That's
For
great.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. And Jim, your family's still here in the Puget Sound area?
Yeah, mom and dad living in Carnation, and sisters down the street from me. So.
Oh,
can't
that's
complain.
great. That's great. Yeah, weekend dinners and hanging out with the family. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So one of the things that I think from an audience standpoint here at the podcast, love to hear a little bit about it's kind of some of the motivations of the early stages. What kind of drove you to obviously move from the pasta station to something a little bit more interesting. Tell us a little bit about some of those early pieces, maybe after that graduate degree that you got working in Detroit, or we'll say graduate degree. How did you move into the next stage? What brought you back to the Puget Sound area?
Yeah, for sure. It was a no-brainer to go from working at a VC to then working at a wireless distributor that fixed phones. No-brainer to go from courtside Cavs to fixing iPhones for a living. And the reason
Seems linear. Seems linear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they gave me a great title. I was like VP of strategy. I was, I don't know, 24 years old.
Yeah.
How can you be VP of anything then, right? But it was a great opportunity for me to go see where hardware ended with its life cycle, to kind of reverse that journey and see how it was made. So, I saw, of course, we had the mobile software renaissance, right, where cloud enabled everyone to essentially build software much faster than before.
Yeah.
And I was really intrigued in the hardware complement of that. And Detroit kind of rubbed off a little bit on me. It was the arsenal of democracy in its heyday, right?
Yeah.
So kind of thinking about how can we bring smarter hardware, enterprise grade, potentially made in America,
Right.
to enable some of the critical, perhaps hidden parts of our society, like healthcare,
Yep.
like the government agencies, and how can we enable them with better hardware than just consumer grade, Samsung or Apple or LG at the time. So that was the trek, and that journey took me to Shenzhen, took me many times to Asia.
Yeah.
I had a crash course in learning how to actually build a smartphone from scratch.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually not that complicated. It's kind of like making a T-shirt when you simplify it all down. And so the early days, we had medtech companies, big med device companies coming to us and saying, hey, look, I have a defibrillator product, for example, and I need to send that data to home base.
Okay.
And I'm using a Samsung device. It's like an S2, S3. I need you to hack the operating system.
Okay.
I need you to refurbish it. It needs to last like 5+ years.
Okay.
And we were thinking, okay, there's probably a better solution than that, right? Buying stuff off eBay, hacking it, and kind of jerry-rigging it. So learned a ton about Qualcomm as an ecosystem, and started there building our own phones and tablets about 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, no, and so one of the things that I'm curious about, as from a person that has had quite a bit of success, some of the listeners out there might be curious, like, how, golly, that sounds like a very entrepreneurial approach. I know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience thinking about, how do I get some of those first steps? Like, how did you even come across some of those roles or some of those opportunities? Was it just completely novel ideas that you came up with and you flew to China to do some of that stuff? Or how did you get an inkling that you wanted to do some of those things?
I think everything originates with like a personal problem that hits home. So for me, it actually started with my sister.
Okay.
Where she was going to college, University of Michigan.
Okay.
And she goes to school, and first week in class, she spills like tea on her MacBook, and all of a sudden her $1,200 MacBook costs $1,200 to fix.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, there's got to be a better solution to that. Let's go to where it's made and see what happens. So take the laptop back, the MacBook, and I was working at Microsoft at the time.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll take it to one of these like bazaars in Beijing.
Yeah.
And I'll see what they can do with it. And sure enough, you give it to this guy, and you're like, hey, I spilled tea on this thing. Can you resurrect it? They're like, no problem, smoking cigs. I'll take it in the back closet, and all of a sudden, and then it's like, 45 minutes later, it comes back, just pristine condition, gives me a keyboard laptop cover, and all of a sudden it was like $40.
Holy
right?
smokes.
And so I was like, oh, wow, that's some arbitrage right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So the original idea was actually just taking Apple products, laptops, et cetera, and seeing if we can build a better Apple Care for it. And so that curiosity, that Nancy spilling the tea on her laptop, led me to then buying laptops off Craigslist, learning the intricacies of like all the different components of Apple products, right? And seeing, okay, perhaps it's not laptops, perhaps Apple Care is pretty good for Apple, right? And what are some of the other parallels? And so looking at it less from a consumer angle, where Apple, has a great experience, and there were other products that are out there, services, but seeing what enterprise needs, they usually lag 4 or 5 years behind.
Yeah.
There really wasn't like an enterprise Apple Care type of experience where you can go to a company, not to the Apple store, but to folks who can actually build them the device infrastructure they need. Where do you go if you want to go build the next Peloton bike or the next Square Register?
Right.
So that's kind of where the idea started becoming what is Mason today.
Yeah, because I remember you've talked about that. If you are a major enterprise and you need to buy 20,000 devices, 20,000 tablets, you can't just go to Apple or Samsung and do that.
Best Buy.
Their lifespan doesn't work also in the enterprise, right? You need something that has 5 or 10 years of durability, but a consumer grade product is much shorter. Is that all right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like looking at healthcare.
Yeah, and healthcare is
right. Like you
very
have
magnified.
You have a lot of nurses using iPhones, where you're spending $1,200 on an iPhone to do data entry and messaging and charting, but you can't use Siri because that's a security vulnerability.
Right.
You can't use Face ID because that's a security vulnerability.
Oh,
you can't use you're paying $1,200 for a phone where really all you're using it for is an iPod.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
how do you unlock some of the technologies that already exist? How can you give a Siri-like experience to nurses and doctors in the field?
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was the first use case of Mason, right? Or that's been the foundation of Mason. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about that. It's enterprise grade tablets, phones, smartwatches.
Exactly. Yeah. So anything in the Apple lineup, but really built and designed for enterprise use, starting in clinician use cases like clinical trials.
Okay.
Right. So patients would have their own diaries. Clinicians, doctors, nurses would have their own tablets.
Yeah.
And this created a secure data network to actually do clinical trials.
Okay.
So whether it's allergy studies all the way to cancer studies that last 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Right. The clinical trial companies, they can't keep up with Apple. Hey, I'm going to update and give everyone Apple devices.
Right.
They have their own set of requirements. Oftentimes it's the opposite of what Apple provides.
Okay.
Right. And so we were able to do this pretty quickly. Have over 100,000 patients that we've touched.
Yeah.
Across a variety of different studies, and that led us to then signing up medical device companies.
Okay.
So cardiac defibrillators, epilepsy sensors. I mean, you name
So
it.
are you creating devices that are using the same form factor as the iPads, or are you just like similar tablet type devices or similar phone type devices that don't have all the bells and whistles, it sounds like, that are not even being used, and you're able to use some type of open source OS or platform that would have the functionality that they do need for clinical trials or some other healthcare application? Is that right?
Exactly. So we went the Android route, and
Yeah.
we enable our customers to actually also create their own custom Android operating system.
Okay.
Right. So if you can have your own brand of hardware, your own brand of software,
Yep.
and you come to us, and we can create the entire bundle, logistics,
Interesting.
certifications.
Interesting. And that's still an ongoing concern today. Do you still have a number of customers that are deploying that?
Yeah, very much a profitable business that we're excited about, and it gives us a very unique strategic lens into hardware.
Yeah.
Because as software is now really commoditized with AI, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are the moats that are really left for you to build something around? So, and we believe now, with the hardware play, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of enabling AI at the edge.
Yeah.
Instead of having to send all this stuff to the cloud, these phones, these tablets now are super powerful.
Yeah.
Right. Where with Moore's law going that way, you're just going to have a lot more capabilities at your fingertips without having to pay for that recurring, cloud SaaS revenue.
Well, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that. But we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Well, we're back. Jim, I think some of the things you've been talking about, business development, some of the advice that you have for folks, listeners out there. Love to hear a little bit more about some of the current ventures you've got, obviously, with the devices out there. How did you pivot into healthcare? Was there a particular precipitating event, or do you have a particular interest in healthcare, or what's the impetus behind this?
Yeah, healthcare has really been at its origin since I was young.
Okay.
Parents had a business that actually did import exporting of medical devices.
Oh wow!
So as a fourth grader, I knew what an infusion pump was.
Okay.
And the only difference was it didn't have internet on it.
Right.
So you fast forward, it was a natural path for us to start building the smart guts, if you will, the smartphone tablet components into medical device technology,
Yeah.
right? So, so that was a very natural path. And as we've seen the consumerization of healthcare, where before 20 years ago, right, getting just your, ECG, your cardiac check, you have to go to the hospital.
Right.
Now you can wear a patch and you can do 30 days of vitals monitoring all at home, right? We're seeing that with glucose, with CGM, right?
Yeah.
And the next
all
one,
sorts of wearables and
all
other
sorts
devices.
of wearables,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure.
And so catching on to that wave was, super important for the business, and
Okay.
it also made sense as the med device companies, right? Their life cycle is 10 plus years, whereas a smartphone lasts about a year or two, before you have to cycle into the next model. So there's a lot of room for us to play with, and even if you're a large household name med device company, and you're shipping hundreds of thousands of devices,
Right.
that's still a drop in the, that's a 4-hour sales, window for someone like Samsung, right?
Okay.
And they're not providing the customization.
I was going to ask, like,
Yeah.
who do you come up against, or who are the folks that maybe develop similar type of devices that are really bare bones that are
Yeah.
for this type of purpose? Is Stryker out there? Is McKesson out there?
Yeah.
Is like who's out there that is doing some of the similar things that you're competing
Yeah,
against?
we see a lot of the household name is, hey, I've heard I use Samsung for my tablets. I
Right.
use Samsung for my phones.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where we see a lot of the competition is really just from these consumer phones and tablets.
I see.
And oftentimes they've already run into a number of different issues. Hey, in the last 5 years, we've deployed all these different phones and tablets.
Yeah.
And we're running into security issues, connectivity issues,
Got it.
right?
Okay.
Life cycle availability issues.
So they try the other guys first, and then
Yeah.
they say, I got all these problems, all these potholes, and then they come to Mason.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they see how much easier it is.
Yeah.
And instead of having, finger pointing where you're, if the device breaks, is it the manufacturer's issue?
Yep.
Is it your mobile device management vendor's issue? Is it your cellular provider's Verizon's issue, right? Like, is it your integrator's issue? So you end up having that Spider-Man, meme where everyone's pointing fingers, right?
Right, yeah.
We come in and it's like, okay, how do you need to deploy it? What do you need,
Yeah.
right? We build everything from the board level up so that we use like Qualcomm chips. We use the best quality material.
Okay.
Because we have to maintain that infrastructure, right, for 4,
Right.
5, 10 years. So
Right.
we have med device companies with us now that launched in year 1 with us that are still running,
Same devices.
Same devices.
That's
right?
fantastic. That's fantastic. And as you think about that competition, who are you selling into? What's some of the pitch? Like, obviously here at Margin and Moto, we think about what's the return that folks are looking for, what's the ROI that is necessary for folks to feel like they're getting good value out of Mason. Who are you pitching to? How is that conversation going? What are some of the highlights that you raised there? And then obviously thinking about some of the new ventures you've got, how does that similarly resonate with some folks that you might be talking to?
Yeah, that's a great question. The a big buyer is the head of engineering, the
Okay.
VP of engineering at these medtech companies.
Okay.
Right, and they're looking to accelerate the roadmap. They're looking to lower their BOM costs.
Yeah.
Right, they're trying to outbox or outcompete the top 2, top 3 guys. Right,
Okay.
whether it's you name your segment. And so for them, we're kind of a no-brainer in that something that would have taken them 3, 4, 5 years to go develop, they can now shrink. We have a med device company that kicked off with us earlier this year, and they're going to go live
Okay.
at the end of this year, which is like lightning speed.
Yeah.
When you're doing a class 2, class 3 product, right? So accelerating the roadmap and then lowering that barrier when it comes to now, hey, your product can be 50, 60% cheaper. So the same med device company, we're lowering their BOM cost by 70%.
Right.
So now they're going to come out with a new product in the market where it's like, wow,
Yeah.
the competition, watch out. It's 2, 3x the features, right, and half the cost.
Now, how much of your business is white label like that, and versus some direct to consumer type business?
All of it is
It's
enterprise.
all white label
Yeah.
type. Okay. I got it. I thought it was a little bit higher than that, or a little bit lower than that. But yeah, so that's an interesting model. And like I said, the director of engineering that you're pitching to, or the chief financial officer probably, and some of these organizations, the value proposition that you're pitching, the value proposition that they're bringing. Tell us a little bit more about that and the details there as you're making those sales.
Yeah, for sure. So for the head of engineering, it's a no-brainer when it saves their engineering so much time,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a lot of costs around that. And then for the head of finance, the CFOs, they're looking at this as a big line item for them. So oftentimes, for example, we have one company where by moving from Samsung to Mason, it would make a double-digit impact on their EBITDA.
Wow.
Right. So the cost then is not a, hey, can I switch over the SaaS software spend over from here to here? It's more,
Right.
it's very impactful for the business. And these are not, these are large med device companies where something like that is.
I mean, double-digit percentage is huge, right?
And within the med device application, you provide there's the med device, and then you are a bolt-on interface for that application, right? So they might wear a smartwatch that connects to their mobile EKG or something like that.
Yeah. And for a lot of the med tech leaders, they're designing the product so that our phone or tablet access the brain.
Okay.
So
Right.
if you were to build your own phone or tablet screen for your med device today, using the current legacy way of designing it from the 90s, 2000, and now, that's going to cost you thousands of dollars, right? So a big aha moment for a lot of these engineering leaders are like, hey, why don't I just leverage the supply chain of Android, of Qualcomm, right, of Google, right? And now I can bring a camera sensor to my med device product for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
And it's mature and it's stable, right? And I can start drizzling some AI onto this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Versus
so
if you were to build it yourself.
So the camera comes from the supplemental device, right? So
Yeah.
now it's okay. Instead of having to reconfigure the entire med device, try to get a camera or some sort of, bolted on thing, we can have a second part to our application, to our technology, and that'd be the device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. And so, what's an example of a device that maybe me or my grandma or somebody at home might have had of yours?
Yeah. So, folks, after Thanksgiving, we've all had it, right? Feel a little bit bloated, maybe
Yep.
some chest pains, and, a number of folks suffer from cardiac issues. So usually Thanksgiving, Christmas is around the time. And you go to your cardiologist, and in order for them to even take a look at what's wrong with you, testing for arrhythmias, for example, traditionally it was like, hey, come to the hospital, we're going to put a bunch of leads on you, and we're going to watch you. This is like 20,
Yeah.
30 years ago. And now fast forward, there are companies that can now apply a patch, you wear an ECG patch, works for anywhere from 2 weeks up to 30 days.
Oh.
And that patch is taking all the vitals that you would have recorded if you were at the hospital 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
But more accurately, right? And but in order for that device to actually work,
Yeah.
it's very power hungry. It needs to send that data back to home base,
Okay.
whether via cellular or Wi-Fi. And so to offload that burden, that data transfer burden, these med tech companies use us, use our watches and use our phones as that gateway device. So it's a reader for the patient to stay in the loop of what's going on
Yeah.
as their heart's being monitored, as well as it's a critical infrastructure piece
Yeah.
for the medtech company to be able to take that critical vital data,
Got it.
send it to home base, and then provide a report for it, for example, for the cardiologist.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's amazing. So talk us through a little bit of that thread now. I hear you're doing some very exciting things with robotics.
Yeah.
Obviously, those devices, stacked devices, pads and phones and those sorts of things. But all the rage. I know I've watched these videos about some of these robots doing crazy dance moves and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about the application of robotics and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, a phone and a tablet is really just a precursor to what you're seeing with the humanoid robots today, right? And a lot of the same, pieces apply. What's the operating system that's actually running it? How do you actually build applications for it so that the robot can actually serve a purpose?
Okay.
And we dove into robots early last year, and it's very much, compared to smartphones, it's kind of like 2005, 2006 smartphone days, right?
Okay.
This is the second robot off the line, right? For my robot partners. We're the first to start testing a number of different things, right? Like, for example, getting the robot to be able to press a elevator button or to open up ADA doors, right, to do deliveries. And so it's very, very early, very early times. We have some really good engineers from UW, robotics program over here. And so, we're learning a ton, and we think that in the next few years, you'll see healthcare really adopting this, less in the kind of front-facing application, but more back of house. Right, really saving your nurses time on things that they don't want to do, so that they can focus on more of the patient-facing stuff.
Yeah. So what are some of those use cases that you're thinking about for a humanoid robot?
Yeah, definitely. Courier delivery, doing a lot of the running,
Yeah.
right? And our infrastructure is to the point where you can create a integration with the elevator, and Otis, ThyssenKrupp, they decide whether or not they even want to connect to the internet, right? So the ability to do a courier service, you just have to be able to handle an elevator environment, for example.
Interesting.
So that's one of the biggest challenges, is like, how do you actually get a robot to identify an elevator, know how many people are in it, should it go in there?
Yeah, if it goes on and off, how does it know what
Yeah.
floor it's on and those sorts of things, right?
Right,
It's
right.
practical,
Right.
problems that are solving.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, we all know big names out there. Elon Musk and Tesla recently announced that they're also kind of getting into robots. How do you view some of the competitors out there? How do you view what they're doing, what you're doing, and how do you differentiate? How do you create a little bit of that moat for what you're doing that can bring success to Mason?
Yeah, we're not trying to build a robot from scratch. Let's just be very clear on that, right?
Yeah.
We have a license and assemble model
Okay.
with a lot of these robot companies, where we license the majority of their designs. We customize and make it bespoke for a specific enterprise use case, like in retail or in healthcare.
Okay.
Make sure that works specifically for that pilot environment before we take it to market,
I
right?
see.
Because the general purpose, the AGI, general purpose robots, that is Elon's thing,
Sure.
right? That is the folks that are raising billions of dollars going after that. We think that's probably a little bit too early. A time will tell. But with an enterprise, there are a lot of very doable applications today that we can apply this to, right? Security, patrol, right?
see.
Where, for example, having someone in a hazardous environment,
Right,
is
like
very-
RoboCop, Detroit,
Yeah,
RoboCop.
a little bit, a little bit of that Detroit influence, exactly. Yeah.
So a consumer might see this very robot just with a slightly different form factor or different peripherals out there doing something else.
Yeah,
And then you're
exactly.
taking a similar form factor and you're saying, okay, we've got to have these appendages or these monitoring pieces attached to it to serve the function that you're talking about in the hospital or at a nursing home or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
A robot, I mean, we call it human a robot, but really what it is it's a server rack, right?
Right,
It's
yes.
really just a server rack
Yeah.
for the folks at home, where it's
Right.
not really, a self-aware, Skynet coming in. Not yet anyways,
Sure.
right? It's a server rack with a lot of different computers that are talking in unison to each other, right?
Got
It's a
it.
network of devices that are talking to each other.
And is Mason, Mason hardware, your tablets, your operating systems, are your robots powered by Mason?
It's powered NVIDIA chip for the GPU.
Heard of them.
Yeah, and Intel for the CPU. So that's what powers the robot. Our devices, our phones and tablets, act as the cellular gateway,
Yeah.
right? The cellular connectivity portion, where the robots don't come with cellular baked in.
Yeah,
right
so
out the
same
box.
model.
Same model,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So the phone tablet acts as a peripheral to the robot. And similar to how humans, when you're working in the field, you have a phone or a tablet where
Yeah.
you're running applications and you need to talk to it. Same thing here, right?
Okay.
The robot needs an interface in order to be able to actually use the same applications that we're using as, human workers today.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And if it's at a nursing home at night, it can just mine Bitcoin or something since it's a server,
exactly.
right? Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah, there are a lot of things you think about where you're like, wow, that makes a ton of sense. Like, having a transmitter built into your back, probably not feasible, really uncomfortable. For the robot, that's what it does. Right?
Yeah.
So you can have, for example, a transmitter built in the back where it can update all your local, electronic shelf tags.
Yeah.
So those are things that you can now do, where otherwise it would have cost you, installation costs to put transmitters every 10 feet,
Yeah.
or you have to have a human being walk around with a transmitter on their back.
Yeah.
So, those are some obvious use cases we haven't applied humanoids to yet.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then you're also, we were texting the other day, you're also building, the local device paired with the agent model, kind of the Claude bot that, captured a lot of imagination probably 6 weeks ago, really not that long ago. Folks buying a Mac Mini, loading Claude bot, loading some of these other local agentic tools and agents. There's a lot of excitement right now. You're in a nice position where if you're able to do things like that. You've got an R&D team, you've got hardware. So yeah, is that something you're going to lean into?
For sure. I mean, And when we think about, robots, we think about it being able to do stuff in the cloud and apps as well as go to the front door and pick up our DoorDash, right? And so that's what we want to integrate all together. Again, we're not building the models from scratch. That's not us. We're not building the robots from scratch, right? That's not us. But putting all this together, all these different pieces together so that an enterprise can actually consume and see the benefits, right? Is this a solution that can actually solve your problem and more?
Yeah.
And, again, half the cost, 2 to 3x more features for the enterprise to really be like, okay, this thing serves a purpose for me versus be another shiny toy, right?
Yeah.
These robots still cost, 6 figures.
Right.
If you want to build the biped version, still costs 6 figures.
Yeah.
Because it's still really hard to figure out the chicken or the egg. How can you get economies of scale? How can you produce tens of thousands of these robots when really most of them can't even stand up straight, right? For a long period of time.
Yeah. So over the next couple of years, where do you see deployment of these? It sounded like a little bit acute facilities, certainly skilled nursing facilities. Are you seeing these in the home as well? Or how are you seeing, or where do you think some of your partners are going to deploy these types of devices and robots?
Yeah, home's definitely probably last frontier.
Okay.
Just from my own personal perspective.
Yeah.
I think definitely more use cases around security, patrol,
Okay.
right? Where there are currently people in dangerous environments.
Okay.
Where life is actually of value.
Okay.
And a $25,000 piece of metal can definitely substitute.
Sure.
And then removing a lot of the mundane work, right? So what's the, hey, can you go bring something here and drop it off over there,
Right.
right? So
Okay.
we'll have to have other ways.
So those aren't just healthcare applications. Certainly there are healthcare applications for something what you just described, but could be any kind of other, manufacturing or other commercial use that
Exactly.
out there.
Right,
So,
exactly. Because the use case is navigation, right? Being able to do gestures, being able to actually take video and microphone input from the user and be able to send it to somewhere.
So you mentioned the elevators stump the robots. Are there any other kind of stumping points that you wouldn't think of?
Yeah, I mean, depending on how you have your nav set up and your vision model set up, ramps, right, can be a big issue because is it a wall or is it a ramp?
Yeah.
So that there are most of the hands today don't have tactile sensors in them.
Right.
Some of the latest generation of hands do.
Okay.
So the ability for a robot to actually discern, a glass that I can, break versus rubber.
Right. Or a steel rod or something like that.
Yeah.
Like similar sized. Interesting. That's really interesting. Fantastic. Well, we'll take a quick break. Come back and talk a little bit more with Jim. So, Jim, we've talked a little bit about the applications of the robots and how we're commercial, hospital, et cetera. I don't know, what other innovations, pieces, how do we see AI coming into play here? I know Jared and I were talking earlier today about, where AI is showing up in lots of places in healthcare. How are you adopting, how are you using AI? Where do you think that's going to come into play for some of the devices you've got?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great time to be a founder. The distance from idea to prototype and seeing whether or not the market wants what you have as a solution to their problem. I mean, that loop can be faster than ever. And so where we're using AI, and it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or not at our company, our quarterly bonus for everyone is based on how well you've embraced AI and actually integrating it into your own workflows. What are you eliminating that are mundane clicks in order to process an order, for example, right? And so that's been really exciting to see, everyone really embracing AI, not as a, hey, it's here to replace me, but hey, it can actually provide me superpowers where I'm more than just what I signed up for, right? So I think having that mentality is really key because it's a scary time, right? We're seeing all these layoffs from big companies, and AI is the culprit. AI, right?
Yeah,
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Square, right? Just 40%, whatnot.
And that's been something that I've been curious about is as an officer, or as somebody who has to make major strategic decisions for your product line and for your firm, how do you, and I've been using this term, how do you move to where the puck's going to be right now? Because it's the ground shifts underneath us almost every week or two. And so, you have a major software product you want to build, a major application. I think about PDF scrubbers and like document management, right? Like 3 years ago, you've got probably hundreds of applications that are built around transforming a PDF into structured data or structured text, and just overnight, it's like boom, that's done. So, how do you make big strategic decisions, investments right now as a founder, and pick a use case or pick an application feature set that will still be needed in 6 months or 18 months or 5 years from now?
Right. I mean, it's pretty clear, like if you see where the puck is skating, that software is nearing free. It's tokenized, right? What you want to spit into tokens and you get in terms of software.
Right.
And so I think taking advantage of that as a founder means, okay, how can we use AI to build prototypes so much faster, right? Before, to get something out, to coordinate with the marketing and the ops and the developers, it would take you 4 or 5 weeks. Now you can show your customers same afternoon. You yourself can show your customers without even having to do all that.
Yeah.
And so I think the investments we're making is make sure if you're not venture backed, make sure you're generating cash, right? Because having the cash deployed when the timing is right is super important. 2 is training your team right now to be very much AI first, right? It's not about replacing your role, but how do you essentially become a manager of AI agents and an AI crew to go do your job so that you can go on vacation and the work can still be done.
Yeah, that's right. That's
the way, right? How can you be this orchestrator? And then thirdly, I mean, everyone knows that if the software is becoming more and more free, then what's your advantage as a business? And I think we'll start seeing more of these pirate ship type mentality where you have smaller crews, right? Maybe there are 10 people, 10 people, but they're generating 20, 30, 40 million of revenue, right? And instead of, perhaps going down the IPO route, you can actually just pay out dividends. You can take care of your people, right? It's that pirate ship mentality, right? Without the robbing and the victimization. But it's like, hey,
I don't know, rum and
good time.
It can be pretty fun.
So. Yeah, you can still get the island living, right? And just being very open with your crew that, like, hey, perhaps our outcome is not going to be IPO. That's for a small percentage.
Yeah.
The other would be like to join a larger company, get acquired or acqui-hired in.
Sure.
And then the alternative here is like we can have our own destiny, live our pirate ways, our values, right, and generate profit where we can take care of our family and our village.
Yeah.
And I think that could be a really good way of sustaining.
You were part of YC. You really went through a fairly scripted journey of fundraising and going through an incubator and all. You went through the true journey, right? The rocket ship that everyone gets excited about.
Ups and the downs.
Ups and downs. Yeah. And I wonder if the next decade or the next 2 decades will look different. And to your pirate ship analogy and thinking a little bit more about a family business versus just a rocket ship is in store for a lot of these folks.
Yeah, I think I wish someone told me 10 years ago, right? Like what is a happy outcome for you?
Yeah.
Right? Is it generating billions of dollars? Is it, winning that next award? At what point is that actually content, right? And, spending time on things that I really value beyond just like the business or the company or increases in stock value. Yeah. I think now with AI and this age of abundance that's supposed to occur, it's like, hey, I wish I had some more runway thinking about that earlier than now being 37 and your body's aching a little bit more, right? Like to pick up some of those things sooner.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Well, thanks for chatting with us today, and we're excited to see where you go with your hardware and software. It's just really cool that you're on the hardware side, like you said. I mean, that's there's a lot there, and so it'll be exciting to see what you do and Mason does, and we'll look forward to being a part of the journey on the healthcare sector side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
But you must be excited about the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl championship. What are your thoughts on losing Kenneth Walker? Good, bad, indifferent?
Hey, a team is a team, and I think that team's going to be great. And we got the Mariners in a month, So hoping Cal hits 63. So
There you go. There you go. Fantastic. Fantastic.
awesome. Thank you guys.
Well, so that's all for this episode of Margin and Motive Podcast with Jason Lee. I want to thank both Jim and Jared for joining me today. Talked a little bit about Jim's journey, his amazing entrepreneurial pathway, and some of the companies that he's had and how it impacts healthcare, and as well as many other industries. And if you want to hear more conversations like this, please like and subscribe to the Margin and Motive Podcast, and we'll see you next time.